Episode 47. This week, A Pattern of Force. No way in 2019 would this ever have been made. No way. No way at all. This one, not allowed to air in Germany until 30 years after the original showing. They wouldn't show it in Germany. This one, of course, the controversial Nazi episode. Basically, the Enterprise was on a mission. They were going to a planet called Ecos, next to a planet called Zeon, because they were looking for Kirk's professor from the Academy, who was supposed to be a culture observer for Zeon. They couldn't find him. They didn't know where he went. He'd gone silent. McCoy was like, he's dead. He's definitely dead. No way he's alive. No way he's dead. He's definitely dead. They were like, well, we'll search anyway, Dr. McCoy. Calm down. And then a nuclear missile came flying at them. They had to shoot down the nuclear missile, and they're like, that planet shouldn't have nuclear missiles. And they're like, I bet John Glenn did it. So Kirk and Spock, who last week wasn't supposed to go together on a mission at the same time, no problem going on a mission together again like that. So for some reason they dressed in their clothes from City on the Edge of Forever, jeans and flannels, and a beanie cap for Spock. They beam down to this place, and they're watching the television when they get there, and they see Nazi propaganda. They see a woman getting a award for being a high-ranking official in the state or something. Then a guy runs around the corner, like, run and hide at the top of his lungs. So they duck around the corner, and then 2 feet away from him, the SS are beating this guy down. Apparently the cops couldn't hear the guy screaming at the top of his lungs, run and hide. He didn't see Spock and Kirk. Then they get caught. Spock nerve pinches the guy, dresses in his uniform. Another guy shows up to arrest him. They knock him out. Kirk puts on the uniform. He's like, too bad my uniform is more beautiful than yours. Which was a weird thing to have said about Nazi uniforms. They're headed into the main office building for the party to see if they can find Glenn. And they get stopped and questioned. Spock's like, oh yeah, the paper's in my coat for my orders. And Kirk's like, yeah, he had a head injury. And then the guy told Spock to remove his helmet, presumably to check for the head injury. They didn't outright say it, but that's the only explanation I could think. And, of course, you see Spock's not from that planet. And then they presume he's a spy from Zeon, despite not looking like a Zeon either, because they all look pretty much human. They torture Spock and Kirk. Another high-ranking official comes on over and he says, yeah, we'll give him an hour in jail and walk away from him, and then we'll execute him. And the guy's like, I want to execute him now. And he's like, tough. Put him in jail. Let him think about it for an hour. So they do that. Kirk and Spock had subdermal beacons implanted in them before they left the ship. Never before or since had they had that, but they had it this time so they could cut them out of their arms with a broken light bulb, and then use the light to reflect off the beacons and shoot a laser beam into the lock of the cell so they could get out. It was very convenient. And then the guy that had been beaten up was in the cell next to him, and he's like, I can show you where the control room is, where they have your communicators and phasers. And they're like, great. So they go there. They get their things, and yet another security guard comes in. They knock him out, grab another uniform, and then they sneak out of the place, go to the underground where the Ecosians are. Apparently they were like working as an underground, and then the lady they saw on TV came by. They were like, oh no, it's a trap. They pretend to shoot the guy's brother that helped him. He was fine, it was a blank. They were like, we had to test you to make sure you weren't like enemies. And they were like, well, that's smart. Then they go back to the headquarters. They call down Dr. McCoy. McCoy shows up complaining that he can't get his boots on because they give him the wrong size of boots. Spock tells him how to put boots on. Then more security comes in, and they're like, oh, well, he's drunk, so we had to hide him in this closet. And they were like, well, that's a good idea. And they left. Then they found Gil. They couldn't know if he was drugged or sick or something, but he was on television giving orders to do the final solution on the Akoshians. Of course, they end up stopping him. Then there's a big shootout with machine guns. Gil gets shot. They shoot the guy that had drugged Gil and had ordered him to do this. Apparently, Gil thought it would be a great idea at one point. He's like, well, it started out great for Hitler, and then it got carried away. Who could have foreseen problems with it? Kirk's like, well, you should have, because remember, you're a history professor, and you should have seen the problems. And he's like, oh yeah, and then he was dead. That was pretty much it. Hugely controversial episode. Some interesting notes. No Sulu again this week. He was gone. Chekhov and Uhura. Scott, not in it very much at all. Like I said, they wouldn't air this in Germany until the 90s. Mid-90s, they finally allowed it because of the Nazi propaganda in it. It was against the law to show that in Germany. Had to be a big joke. Somewhere the writers or the producer or someone said, what can we get two prominent Jewish actors to do that would be funny for us? And they're like, we know, Nazi episode, dress them up as Nazis. Had to have been. Nimoy and Shatner, I don't think were happy, but they did it. The lady that got the award that later was a underground turncoat against the Nazi party, she actually quit acting over this episode because she didn't know that there was going to be actual Nazi propaganda displayed. When there was, she was so upset she just left the profession of acting. Never acted ever again in her life. Ever. Kirk and Spock dressed as Nazis, it was not the greatest of thing. It hasn't aged well. They'd never get away with that today. But pretty much that was the episode.